I awaken the most garbage F-rank ability in history. Refresh can restore any designated non-living matter within a 1-meter radius back to its initial state, but in practice, refreshing a book just gave me the same book, refreshing a towel just gave me the same towel. So on the 3rd month after the zombie apocalypse, my girlfriend took the last half pack of biscuits and got into another man's car without looking back. Before leaving, she tossed an empty instant noodle cup at my feet, like feeding a dog. Connie, don't blame me, your ability is just too useless. Staying with you, I'd starve to death sooner or later. In despair, I stared at that empty cup, and a wild thought flashed through my mind. Refresh. A rich aroma of braised beef exploded violently. Under the torn packaging, lay neatly stacked noodle bricks and 3 seasoning packets. I froze. So my ability wasn't useless. We all misunderstood it. The so-called restore to an initial state doesn't mean restore to its state a second ago, but to its original state when it first came into existence. An empty instant noodle cup, its initial state, is a complete and open cup of noodles. At that moment, my heart pounded wildly in my chest, not from fear, but from sheer exhilaration. I looked around this ransacked convenience store, the shelves filled with torn open snacks and empty drink bottles. To others, these were trash, but now, in my eyes, they were an endless treasure trove. I didn't rush to boil water. In the apocalypse, the scent of any food to attract unwelcome guests. I carefully climbed to the convenience store's 2nd floor storage room, then blocked the door with a heavy shelf. Only after confirming safety did I start my experiment. I placed the empty noodle cup on the ground and silently chanted, refresh. The cup flickered with a barely perceptible ripple, and in an instant, another brand new cup of noodles appeared. Again, I suppressed my ecstasy and kept repeating. 10 minutes later, before me, a small mountain of 60 cups of noodles had piled up. My ability's cooldown was 10 seconds, meaning I could have an infinite supply of noodles. Then my gaze fell on an empty mineral water bottle nearby. Refresh. Instantly, a 500 milliliter bottle of pure water appeared. I then looked at the first aid kit on the ground, its packaging barely intact. Refresh. A brand new first aid kit materialized in my hand. My breathing quickened. Food, water, medicine, these most precious resources in the apocalypse, were now inexhaustible to me. Limitless. Liu Ruyan, you thought my ability was trash, didn't you? Just wait. One day, you'll all come crawling to beg me for a bite to eat. Over the next 3 days, I locked myself in the storage room. The mountain of empty packaging became my raw materials. Chips, biscuits, chocolate, everything edible. I refreshed into several large boxes. Various drinks and mineral water filled half the corner. Most crucially, I found an empty gas canister, a portable camping stove from the convenience store. Finally, I could eat something hot. After closing all the storage room windows, I boiled a pot of water, tore open 3 seasoning packets, and carefully placed the noodle brick in. When that long-lost aroma hit my nose, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. I cried as I wolfed it down. The fullest and most satisfying meal I'd had since the apocalypse began. With a full stomach, my mind started working again. Hiding here forever wasn't a solution. This convenience store would eventually be breached by zombies, or discovered by other survivors. I had to find a safer stronghold. And I need weapons. Just having food and water in the bedroom would only make me a lamb to the slaughter. I stuffed all the supplies into 2 huge hiking backpacks, then cracked the door open to observe the world outside. A few zombies wandered aimlessly on the street. I took a deep breath. I tightened my grip on a freshly sharpened, brand new fruit knife. Time to hit the road. Leaving the convenience store was a close call. Using the complex back alleys, I avoided most of the zombies. Occasionally, when I ran into a lone one, I'd hurl a freshly spawned full can of cola hard at it. While it was stunned, I'd finish it off with a fruit knife. My target was Blue Bay District in the west of the city, a well-known upscale residential area. Its security system was solid, with tall, thick walls. In the early days of the apocalypse, it should hold out for a while. More importantly, my parents' house was there. When the apocalypse struck, I was at school and lost contact with them. Finding them was my only obsession now. However, the journey to Blue Bay District was tougher than I'd imagined. The city was completely paralyzed. Abandoned vehicles clogged every main road. Along the way, I witnessed too many tragedies. Fierce clashes broke out over supplies. At that moment, I realized deeply, Liu Ruyan's betrayal was perhaps just the most trivial link in this cruel world. Here, humanity had long collapsed. By dusk on the 3rd day, I finally reached the outskirts of Blue Bay District. The tall iron gate was tightly shut. Vague figures stood guard on the wall. It had indeed become a survivor stronghold. I hid in the distance and watched for a long time. To enter the district, I had to pass their inspection, so I adjusted my backpack, hiding most of the supplies in a concealed sewer drain, keeping only 2 bottles of water and a pack of crackers to pose as an ordinary refugee. I worked toward the gate. Stop, who goes there? A sharp shout came from the wall. I raised my hands and looked up, revealing a face smeared with dust. I'm a resident here. My name is Lin Fan. I live in Building 17. Building 17, Lin Fan. The man above fell silent for a moment, seeming to verify via walkie-talkie. After a while, the iron gate creaked open a crack. A man holding a steel pipe, with a wary expression, stepped out. ID card, he said, narrowing his eyes. I pulled out the ID card I prepared from my pocket, and handed it over. He checked it, then looked me up and down. Just you alone. Where's your supplies? Hearing this, I lowered my head, my voice carrying a hint of just the right amount of choked fear. They were all rubbed in the way. This is all I have left to eat. The man frowned, seeming a bit skeptical, but faced with my thin frame and pitiful appearance, he eventually let his guard down. Come in. Remember the community rules. All newcomers must hand over half their supplies for unified distribution. My heart tightened. Luckily, I'd prepared for this, so I obediently nodded, handing over a bottle of water and half a pack of crackers. The man took the items, a flicker of disdain in his eyes, but he still waved me in. Once inside the district, the scene before me eased my tension a bit. Though the atmosphere was still tense, at least there was order. People were patrolling, others reinforcing defenses, and women and children were gathered in the community center. This place is like an island within a bedroom, temporarily cut off from the bloodshed and chaos outside. The woman in charge of registration told me that the compound is now managed by a man called Brother Bao. He used to be the property manager here. After the apocalypse, he awakened the Earth Core ability, organized a guard squad, and protected all the residents. Every day, everyone can receive a portion of supplies based on their contribution points. To get more, you have to join the patrol or logistics team. Claiming I was physically weak, I didn't join any team for now. My top priority was to find my parents, but when I ran home with a nervous heart and reached my doorstep, what I saw was a security door violently forced open, and the inside ransacked into chaos. Seeing this, my heart sank to the bottom. I rushed inside, frantically calling out for Mom and Dad, but only dead silence answered me. A thin layer of dust covered the coffee table in the living room, showing they had already left, and had been gone for at least several days. Though there were signs of a struggle on the floor, there was no blood. Maybe that was a silver lining in the misfortune. I collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by unprecedented confusion and fear. I had no idea where to look for them. As I sat there, lost and dazed, footsteps sounded from outside the door. A flippant voice rang out, "Oh, looks like we missed one." I jerked my head up and saw two men blocking the doorway. The one in front had a shaved head, eyeing me with ill intent. I recognized him. He was Scorpion, a minor leader under Brother Bao. Scorpion licked his lips, his gaze like he was sizing up a fish on a chopping block. The head of your household owed Brother Bao a lot of contribution points a few days ago, and got kicked out. This house belongs to us now. My pupils contracted. What did you do to my parents? HMPH, just kicked them out. In the apocalypse, the useless end up like this. But you look like you've got some skill. If you're willing to stay and run errands for us, handle some tests, we might consider letting you scrape by here. I was still too naive, thinking this place was a safe haven. Turns out it's the same lore of the jungle here. As they stepped closer, my hand quietly reached for the side pocket of my backpack, where I had a freshly upgraded, brand new fruit knife. But just as I was about to fight for my life, a cold female voice came from the doorway. Stop. Scorpion and his partner froze in unison. Seeing who it was, their smiles instantly stiffened, replaced by fawning expressions. The woman at the door wore a black combat suit, carrying a tang sword in her hand, with dark red bloodstains still on the blade. Behind her followed several equally imposing and fierce-looking team members. I recognized him. She was Shen Ling, the captain of the strongest combat squad in the guard force. Rumor had it she awakened a rare precision ability. With unfathomable strength, Brother Bao's most trusted blade, Chen Ling ignored Scorpion. Her gaze landing on me, she asked flatly, "What's going on?" I clung to her like a lifeline, quickly saying they were trying to bully me. Scorpion's face changed, and he hurriedly defended himself. Shen Ling, don't listen to his nonsense. His parents owed contribution points. We were just here to collect the house. Does collecting a house require two people, and blocking the door? Her voice wasn't loud, but carried an undeniable pressure. Get lost, now. Scorpion, as if granted amnesty, dragged his partner and fled in panic. Once the crisis was over, my tense body went limp, and I nearly collapsed. Chen Ling looked at me, frowning slightly. Stay away from those people from now on. She seemed unwilling to meddle further, and turned to leave. I quickly called out, Captain Chen, do you know where my parents were driven off to? Their names are Lin Zhangguo and Wang Zimei. Chen Ling thought for a moment, a faint memory stirring. Brother Bao drove all the old, weak, sick, and disabled, those without abilities and unable to do heavy labor, to the abandoned factory outside the north gate of the neighborhood, euphemistically calling it survival of the fittest. My heart clenched sharply. An abandoned factory like that, no food, no protection. What difference is there from waiting to die? After Shenlin left, I immediately closed the door. I had to go to the North Gate factory. I had to find my parents, but right now, I needed power. I pulled a piece of chocolate from my backpack, gulped it down in 2 bites to replenish my strength. Then my gaze fell on the steel pipe, left on the ground by the scorpion. It was rusted and even slightly bent. I placed my hand on it and refreshed it. Then, a brand new steel pipe, glimmering with metallic luster, appeared in my hand. This still wasn't enough. I ran to the kitchen and found a set of outdoor survival tools my father had collected long ago. Inside was a multifunctional engineer shovel, a survival axe, and a dagger. They had all become a bit dull from disuse. With 3 cold strokes of refresh, they instantly restored their sharpest forms, as if fresh from the forge. When night fell, I took advantage of the patrol shift change, sneaking quietly to the north gate of the neighborhood. It was far more desolate here than the main gate. Only 2 guards were yawning as they kept watch. I didn't alert them. Instead, I found a blind spot in the surveillance, used a brand new rope I hand refreshed, and easily climbed over the 3-meter-high wall. Beyond the wall was a wasteland, with the silhouette of her factory visible in the distance, like a silent steel beast. The air was thick with a stench of decay, and occasionally, the guttural moans of zombies could be heard. I gripped the steel pipe tightly, lowered my body, and quickly crept toward the factory. But the closer I got, the more zombies there were. I hid behind a broken wall, and saw at least a dozen zombies gathered at the factory entrance. They seemed drawn by some sound, frantically pounding on the factory's tightly shut iron door. From inside the iron door, faint cries and screams could be heard. My parents were in there. My heart burned with anxiety, but reason told me I couldn't force my way in. I scanned the surroundings, and noticed a row of high windows in the factory's side, about 4 meters off the ground. Maybe I could get in through there. With my mind made up, I began to act. I picked up a stone, and hurled it with all my strength toward a distant abandoned car. The stone hit the car window with a crisp crack. The zombies at the gate were indeed drawn by the noise, slowly turning and shambling toward the source. Seizing the opportunity, I dashed to the factory wall in one swift stride, pulled a rope from my backpack, with one end tied to a climbing pick. I swung it hard, and the pick lodged firmly onto the window ledge. I took a deep breath. I climbed nimbly up the rope, quickly slipping through the window, and flipped inside the factory. This was a massive production workshop, littered with rusted machinery and scattered parts. Only a few beams of moonlight filtered through the broken roof. From the other end of the workshop, muffled sobs and arguments reached my ears. I followed the sound cautiously, and in a corner enclosed by discarded machines, I saw dozens of survivors, mostly the elderly and children. I spotted my parents in the crowd at once. They were huddled in a corner, my mother silently crying with her arms around her knees, while my father held her tightly, murmuring comfort. My eyes instantly reddened. I choked out their names. Everyone was startled by my voice, turning to look at me in unison. My parents jerked their heads up sharply. The moment they saw me, the expression on their faces, shock finally turned into ecstasy. My mother let out a scream. She scrambled and crawled toward me. In this hopeless apocalypse, our family of 3 held each other tightly. The joy of reunion washed away all fear and unease. But soon, a discordant voice broke this tender moment. "Kay, where did you come from?" A man with a knife scar on his face stepped forward. Behind him followed several burly young men. Clearly the leader here. He stared at the bulging backpack on my back, his eyes greedy. "Kid, you've got some skill, making it here alone. What's in the bag? Take it out and let everyone see." I shielded my parents behind me, looking at him coldly. "This is mine." "Yours," Scarface sneered. "Nothing here is anyone's, only mine. Be smart and hand over the bag, or else." He shook the machete in his hand, the threat clear without words. The thugs behind him also closed in, their eyes menacing. The elderly and weak, driven here by them, dared to be angry but not to speak, only casting sympathetic glances at me. Seeing this, my father quickly pulled me behind him, smiling obsequiously at Scarface. "Boss, my son doesn't understand. There's just a bit of food in his bag. We'll give it all to you. Please don't make trouble for him." "Too late," Scarface sneered. "Now I want not just his bag, but his life." As soon as the words fall, Scarface reached out to grab me. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. Instead of retreating, I advanced. The steel pipe in my hand, at a tricky angle, slammed viciously onto his wrist. With a crisp crack, Scarface's wrist bent at a grotesque angle. Everyone was stunned. No one expected that I, a seemingly frail kid, would dare to fight back. Scarface, drenched in sweat from pain, roared with a twisted face, "You fucking dare hit me? Get him, grab him, I'll make his life a living hell." The thugs snapped out of it, shouting as they charged at me. I tossed the backpack to my parents, then raised the steel pipe to fend off the attacks. One thug swung a wooden club at me. I sidestepped, dodging it, and with a flick of my wrist, the other end of the pipe struck his vital point. He let out a sharp scream, doubled over, and collapsed to the ground. I made no extra moves. Each strike targeted only weak joints, just enough to defend myself. What terrified them more was that my stamina seemed endless. After taking down 2 in a row, the remaining thugs were scared, hesitating, afraid to advance. Scarface, clutching his broken wrist, looked at me with shock and fury. "Who the hell are you? Are you an ability user too?" I didn't answer him, just stared at him with icy eyes. All the suffering and hardship I'd endured these months now turned into a raging inferno. "Leave, or die." My ruthlessness silenced everyone. Scarface's expression flickered with uncertainty. He never expected to hit a wall. But just as the standoff hung in the balance, the factory's iron door suddenly boomed with a loud crash. Then a second crash, and a third. Seeing this, the crowd erupted in panic. "The zombies outside are breaking down the door. What's going on? Why are the zombies suddenly rioting?" Fear spread like a plague. Scarface couldn't care less anymore. Along with the thugs, using my body and whatever debris I could find, I pressed firmly against the creaking iron door. The zombies were too many. The iron door was battered severely out of shape. The door bolt groaned and creaked. It could collapse at any moment. A pall of despair hung over everyone's hearts. My parents were trembling with fear too, clutching my hand tightly. I took a look. It was an old, rusted iron door. A bold idea took shape in my mind. Then, carrying a steel pipe, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, I worked toward the iron door. "What are you doing? You trying to get yourself killed?" A thug who was bracing the door shouted at me. I ignored him. I pressed my hand directly against the cold, rust-eaten door panel. Then, under everyone's incredulous stares, a miracle happened. That iron door, dented and battered, as if time were flowing backward, slowly smoothed itself out. Even the warped door frame straightened again. In just an instant, a steel door gleaming with metallic luster appeared before everyone's eyes, facing the zombies pounding from outside. The door stood rock steady, only emitting a series of dull thuds. The entire workshop fell into dead silence. Everyone stared at me, dumbfounded. Scarface's mouth hung wide open, even forgetting the pain in his wrist. Pointing at me, he stammered, Your ability is repair." I couldn't be bothered to explain. I withdrew my hand and stared coldly at him. Strength is the best pass in the apocalypse. My earlier ruthlessness, combined with this miraculous display, had completely shattered Scarface's mental defenses. He looked at me, his eyes no longer filled with greed, but with deep fear. Big brother, I was blind earlier and didn't recognize your greatness. You're a man of great magnanimity. Please don't stoop to my level." I said nothing. I just walked over to my parents. My mother looked at me, her eyes complex with pride, worry, and a hint of unfamiliarity. I took her hand and gave her a reassuring look. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Then from that huge backpack, I pulled out a box of self-heating rice, a sausage, and a bottle of purified water, handing them to her. "Mom, eat something first." The aroma of food instantly drew everyone's gaze. Those survivors, who hadn't eaten in who knows how long, stared at the food in my parents' hands, their throats bubbling with gulps, their eyes filled with longing. Scarface and his gang were especially fixated, their eyes glued to it. In this tomb where food was more precious than gold, I could casually pull out so many things. This shocked them even more than my repairing the door. After doing all this, I turned back to Scarface. From now on, I'm in charge here." My voice wasn't loud, yet it reached everyone's ears clearly. Scarface's face twitched. Finally, his legs went weak, and he lowered his head. Taking over the factory stronghold went smoother than I expected. Faced with absolute power and unlimited supplies, Scarface's little authority crumbled. I didn't drive them away. In this city, manpower was also a resource. I had them guard and clear the nearby zombies, while I handled food and logistics. Every day, I locked myself in a separate room, pretending to inventory supplies, but actually frantically refreshing food and all daily necessities. When crates of brand new supplies appeared before everyone looked at me with awe. They all thought I had a spatial ability, with a massive stockpile inside, with ample food and a safe shelter. The survivors' faces gradually regained vitality. The entire abandoned factory became well organized under my management. My parents became my capable assistants, helping me manage personnel and distribute supplies. They rediscovered their dignity and value among the crowd, and their mental state improved day by day. Everything was moving in a positive direction, yet there was always a knot in my heart. That property manager at Blue Bay Estate, the one called Brother Leopard, who drove out defenseless old folks like my parents to fend for themselves. Sooner or later, I'd settle that score with him. And besides, the defenses and living conditions at Blue Bay Estate were far better than this shabby factory. I wanted to give my parents, and these people following me, a more stable home. It was time to go back and face that Brother Leopard. A week later, I had made thorough preparations. Using my refresh ability, I restored several abandoned electric scooters found in the factory to full charge and factory new condition. I also refreshed dozens of brand new protective suits, safety helmets, and steel-toed shoes. As for weapons, besides steel pipes and axes, I had people grind the factory's steel into many sharp spears. As for Scarface and his court members, they were now utterly loyal to me. I gave them enough to eat and warm clothes. In this apocalypse, that was a tremendous kindness. I selected the 20 strongest team members, including Scarface. Before departure, I looked at the ready-to-go team and gave a brief pep talk. We're not going back to beg. We're going to take back what's rightfully ours. Blue Bay Estate has sturdy walls and comfortable houses. There, we'll build a truly safe home. Anyone willing to come with me, get in the car. No one hesitated. After witnessing my incredible abilities, they trusted me almost blindly. A convoy of 20 people rolled out toward Blue Bay Estate in full force. When we arrived at the north gate of Blue Bay Estate, the guards on the wall clearly spotted us. They stared at our well-equipped team, all stunned. Scarface, weren't you kicked out? Why are you back? Scarface, now my loyal follower, straightened his back and answered with a strong voice, we're here to discuss cooperation with Brother Leopard. Cooperation? With you lot? The bard let out a sneer. Just then, I got out of the car, walked to the front, and said calmly, go tell Brother Leopard that Lin Fan is back. That guard didn't recognize me, but seeing me surrounded by the crowd, he knew I was someone important. After a moment's hesitation, he reported up using his walkie-talkie. Soon, the north gate opened. Brother Leopard came out with a large group, including Xianxia, the captain of the duty team. Brother Leopard was a chubby man in his 40s, with shrewd, arrogant eyes. When he saw our team, especially our brand new gear and high spirits, a flicker of surprise and greed crossed his eyes. Well, if it isn't little Brother Lin Fan. Haven't seen you in a few days. Where'd you strike it rich, Brother Lin? Brother Leopard, let's not beat around the bush. I want to move my people into Blue Bay Estate. However, Brother Leopard laughed heartily, as if he'd heard the funniest joke. Brother Lin, are you still dreaming? Blue Bay Estate is my turf. Why should I let you move in? Because of this, I snapped my fingers. Behind me, Scarface brought up a crate. When opened, it was packed full of perfectly sealed compressed biscuits. Seeing this, Brother Leopard's laughter stopped abruptly. The guards behind him, they all gasped in shock. Although Blue Bay compound had good defenses, with so many people, consumption was high. Food had always been scarce. Their daily ration was just a piece of black bread. Where did you get so much food? You don't need to know where I got it. I'm only asking, cooperate or not. Brother Bao's eyes flickered. How do you want to cooperate? Simple. My people move in. We'll provide some of the food. You handle the compound security. We'll manage it together. Brother Bao's face darkened. Little brother, your appetite is a bit too big. I, the leader of our base. How could I sit on equal footing with some unknown brat? That's my condition. If you don't agree, we'll fight our way in. Fight our way in. Tahara, with just your 20-odd people. Xianxia gave a command. Xianxia and the Blade Squad behind her stepped forward in unison. A chilling aura instantly spread. The Blade Squad was Blue Bay Compound's ace. Every member was a battle-hardened ability user. My people tensed up immediately. Only I remained expressionless. I looked at Xianxia, the woman who had once helped me. She was looking at me too, her eyes carrying a hint of curiosity and surprise. Captain Shen, do you think we can't get in? Xianxia was silent for a moment, then spoke. Mr. Lin, your strength is formidable, but Blue Bay Compound has 200 guards. Forcing your way in won't do you any good. Her words were a well-meaning warning. Brother Bao laughed smugly. Hear that? Don't be ungrateful. Hand over all your food, and I might let you and your parents move in as ordinary residents. As for your men, they can go back where they came from. That was his answer. Swallow all my supplies, then drive away all my people. What a clever scheme. I smiled. Looks like there's nothing to discuss. I slowly raised my right hand, then aimed it at the tallest residential building behind them in the compound. I looked at them and said, word by word, I'll give you one last chance. Let me in, or I'll make that building disappear. My words plunged the scene into an eerie silence. Then deafening laughter erupted. Brother Bao laughed so hard tears almost came out. Xianxia, did you hear that? That's the funniest joke I've heard all year. But Xianxia didn't laugh. She just stared at me intently, her eyes full of gravity. She felt I wasn't joking, and I truly wasn't. I stopped smiling and began my countdown. Brother Bao's smile froze. Everyone's laughter died down. They exchanged glances, starting to feel something was off. That 30-story skyscraper was Blue Bay Compound's landmark, home to most of the guards' families. When I counted to 1, Brother Bao finally roared, blustering, "All bluff, seize him." But it was too late. As I finished the last number, I activated my ability, not targeting objects within a 1-meter radius, but expanding its range, without restraint instantly, to its maximum. I aimed at that majestic building 100 meters away, and silently chanted, "Refresh." The whole world seemed to hit mute. In the horrified gazes of hundreds, that towering 30-story building, like a TV screen with signal interference, began to flicker violently, its outline blurred and turned transparent. In just 1 second, that building, along with everything inside it, vanished into thin air. All that remained was an empty foundation, as if it had never existed at all. Everyone's expressions froze on their faces, all turned into blank stares, dazed and a kind of unspeakable terror. Brother Leopard's men completely collapsed. They dropped their weapons and fled in all directions, wailing, as if fleeing from some apocalyptic calamity. Brother Leopard himself slumped to the ground, his face ashen, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. His pride, the 200-man guard squad, crumbled in an instant. Chen Lin and the Sharp Blade squad behind him, though they didn't break down, each of their faces was etched with shock and horror. Chen Lin's hand gripping the tang blade trembled slightly. His gaze at me had completely changed, no longer looking at a somewhat capable survivor, but at a deity working among mortals. I slowly lowered my hand and walked up to Brother Leopard, who was limp as mud. He looked up at me with eyes like he was seeing a monster, his body shaking like chaff. "Can I take my people in now?" Brother Leopard nodded frantically, scrambling to clear the way. I ignored him, turned around to face the equally stunned Scarface and the others behind me, entered the compound. My team snapped back to reality. They looked at me, their eyes filled with fervent worship. They knew their leader was strong, but they never imagined he was this strong. Wiping out an entire building, what a feat of power. Following such a leader, how could they fear surviving the apocalypse? Our group, under the awestruck gazes of everyone in Blue Bay Compound, marched grandly into the compound. No one dared to stop us anymore. Chen Lin and his Sharp Blade squad silently followed behind us, as if escorting us. I knew that from today onward, Blue Bay Compound had a new master. After taking over Blue Bay Compound, the first thing I did was purge. Brother Leopard and his core henchmen who had lorded over others were locked up. I didn't kill them, just stripped them of their abilities. After my refresh ability evolved, it could now affect living beings. I could refresh a person's body, restoring them to their healthiest state. Naturally, I could also refresh the ability core inside them, returning them to their pre-awakening initial state. When Brother Leopard went from an earth element ability user to a fat mind without the strength to trust a chicken, his spirit completely shattered. As for Chen Lin and his Sharp Blade squad, I chose to win them over. They were true warriors, with a conscience, a rare force in the apocalypse. In front of Chen Lin, I refreshed a tang blade that had dulled from battle, and refreshed a box of nearly expired anti-inflammatory medicine, turning it into freshly manufactured medicine. Chen Lin watched all this, and finally understood. My ability wasn't some spatial power, nor was it repair. It was something he couldn't comprehend, a power bordering on the laws of reality. He was silent for a long time. Finally, he bowed his head to me. Sharp Blade Squad will follow your orders from today onward. Having won over the Sharp Blade Squad, I truly gained control of Blue Bay Compound. I set new rules. Everyone, whether they had abilities or not, could get food as long as they worked. I quickly won people's hearts with unlimited supplies. At the same time, I cleared out all the rotten apples in the compound. Under my governance, Blue Bay Compound was revitalized. My parents looked at me with eyes full of pride and relief. They never asked what my ability really was. They only knew their son had grown up and become everyone's pillar of support. After the base got on track, I began to think about a deeper question. Where exactly were the limits of my ability? Refreshing instant noodles, refreshing a building. So, can I refresh a living person? I found a guard who was scratched by a zombie during a fight, and had already started to mutate. Everyone thought he was beyond saving. I dismissed everyone else, closed the door, and placed my hand on his forehead. A soft white light enveloped the guard. His agonized roars gradually subsided. The mutation in his body was visibly receding. I stared at his disappearing wounds, and a storm raged in my heart. I had succeeded. I restored his body to its initial state before infection. This meant that the zombie virus was no longer a death sentence for me. This discovery was even more thrilling than refreshing an entire building. If I could cure the zombie virus, didn't that mean I could save more people? Could I even end this apocalypse? A grand plan quietly took shape in my mind. But before that, I had a personal matter to settle. I called for Shenling and asked him if there had been any news recently about a survivor team called Blazing Fire. That was the team of Chen Yan, the Earth-level flame controller, and my ex-girlfriend, Liu Ruyan. Shenling pulled up a map and pointed at a large supermarket in the east of the city. According to intelligence, they've taken over that place. They're the biggest force in the east. The leader is Chen Yan, a peak Earth-level flame controller. A chill flashed in my eyes. Tomorrow, we'll pay our neighbors a visit. The next day, I only brought Shenling and the Blade Squad. We drove an armored off-road vehicle I had refreshed, barreling straight through everything, and arrived outside that large supermarket. The supermarket had been turned into a sturdy fortress, its walls lined with armed guards. Our arrival immediately put them on alert. Who goes there? State your name. Shenling stuck his head out and called out clearly, Blue Bay Base. Our leader has come to visit Chief Chen Yan of Blazing Fire. The man on the wall clearly hadn't heard of me, but they knew the name Blue Bay Base. Before lying, the supermarket's gate opened, and a man in a red leather jacket walked out. Behind him followed Liu Ruyan, her face full of sycophantic flattery. After months apart, Liu Ruyan seemed to be doing well. When she saw me, she was startled at first, then her face twisted into undisguised mockery and superiority. Oh, if it isn't Lin Fan. What, can't make it out there anymore? Thinking of throwing yourself at Blazing Fire? She probably still thought I was that useless wretch who needed her protection. Chen Yan also looked me up and down, especially when he saw Shenling and the Blade Squad behind me. A flicker of wariness crossed his eyes, but mostly contempt. Blue Bay Base, never heard of it. We don't take in strays here, since we're all survivors. Leave your vehicle and supplies, then get lost. He spoke with extreme arrogance. In his eyes, his Earth-level flame control ability was enough to make him fear no one. Liu Ruyan, riding on his coattails, chimed in, You heard him, didn't you? Lin Fan, for old time's sake, I advise you not to be ungrateful. Right now, you're not even fit to shine Chen Yan's shoes. I looked at her smug, petty face, and suddenly smiled. Liu Ruyan, do you remember that empty instant noodle cup you threw at me? Liu Ruyan was taken aback, not knowing why I suddenly brought that up. What noodle cup? Don't remember. Get lost now. Don't be an eyesore here. I dropped my smile, my eyes turning cold. You don't remember, but I remember it very clearly. Today, I'm here to make you eat it. Liu Ruyan acted as if she'd heard the funniest joke, pointing at me and bursting into laughter. Lin Fan, have you lost your mind? Making me eat an instant noodle box? What gives you the right? Chen Yan crossed her arms and sneered coldly. Kid, you've got quite the nerve. Looks like I need to teach you a lesson, where you'll never learn how to spell death. As soon as the words fall, a blazing fireball condensed in his palm, radiating astonishing heat. The members of the successive squads immediately assumed defensive stances. Only Shenling and I remained standing, utterly still. I shook my head at the fireball in his hand. Is this all you've got? Too weak. I raised my hand. The blazing fireball in Chen Yan's palm was extinguished like a candle blown out by the wind. With a puff, it vanished into thin air. Chen Yan's smug smile froze instantly. He stared in disbelief at his own empty palm. What's going on? Where's my flame? He tried to summon his ability again, but no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't produce even a single spark. His proud Earth-grade flame manipulation ability had vanished. Here, what did you do to me? Chen Yan pointed at me in terror, his voice shrill. I didn't answer him. I merely turned my gaze to Liu Ruyan, who was already dumbstruck. Now, do you think I have the right? Liu Ruyan's lips trembled, his face ashen. Though he didn't know what had happened, he had witnessed that terrifying flame ability fizzle out silently before me. Fear left him unable to form a complete sentence. Shenling tossed him in front of me like a chicken, and he knelt on the ground, snot and tears streaming, begging for mercy. I looked at this pathetic sight, my heart utterly unmoved. I took something out of my pocket. A crushed instant noodle box, braised beef flavor. It was the very one he had thrown at me back then. I had kept it all along. The empty box in my hand instantly restored to a brand new pack of noodles. I tore open the packaging, poured out all the noodle cakes and seasoning packets, leaving only the empty paper bowl, and placed it before Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan stared at the empty bowl on the ground, his face paler than a corpse's. He knew I wasn't joking. With trembling hands, he picked up the bowl, and under everyone's gaze, he was forced to eat it. Tears and snot smeared all over his face. Chen Yan watched this scene, finally realizing what a terrifying existence he had provoked. So his legs gave way and he knelt down too. I didn't look at him, only quietly watching Liu Ruyan, until he had swallowed the entire paper bowl, along with the packaging. The fall of the Blaze base was even simpler than I had imagined. With the leader's ability gone, and terrified by my methods, they offered almost no resistance, and chose to surrender. I merged the two bases, and Blue Bay Base became the most powerful survivor faction in the eastern part of the city. After resolving this grudge with Li Ruin, I poured all my energy into developing the base and researching abilities. Once news of my ability to cure the zombie virus spreads, it will shake the entire world. Until I have enough strength to protect myself, I must keep this secret. I established a secret medical lab, managed by my parents, specially treating those infected who could still be saved. Everyone I cured was deeply grateful to me, becoming my most loyal supporters. My influence grew like a snowball, quietly expanding. During this time, I encountered other survivor factions. To friends, I offered supplies and help. To enemies, I showed no mercy. The name Lin Fan gradually became a legend. Some called me a savior, others called me a demon of destruction. But no matter what they said, no one can deny the fact I have already stood at the pinnacle of this apocalypse. In the 5th year of the apocalypse, Blue Bay Base had expanded into a massive city with a population of 100,000. We had a complete defense system, self-sufficient agriculture, and a society that had restored order. Here, smiles had returned to people's faces, and I, as the creator and guardian of this city, rarely appeared in public. Most of the time, I stayed at the highest tower, in the city center, overlooking the city I had built with my own hands. My abilities had long since surpassed their former limits. I no longer needed to make contact to refresh everything within my line of sight. I could refresh a barren, diseased land, making it fertile. I could refresh a polluted water source, making it clear. My power was drawing closer and closer to that of a true god. Chen was now the supreme commander of Hope City. He stood behind me, reporting the latest situation. City Lord, the zombie horde to the west is drawing nearer. The leader is an S-class mutant zombie with intelligence, one we have never seen before. An S-class zombie was the ultimate disaster of the apocalypse. It possessed the power to destroy an entire city. Hearing this, my gaze pierced through the vast distance, and saw that black tide of billions of zombies, blotting out the sky and covering the sun. I also saw at the center of that tide, the S-class zombie sitting on a throne of bones, like an emperor. He seemed to sense my gaze as well. His blood-red eyes met mine across the air. A terrifying mental pressure crossed 100 miles, and surged toward me. Chen let out a muffled groan, his face instantly turning deathly pale, but I merely waved my hand lightly, and that pressure vanished without a trace. Are you ready? Chen took a deep breath, his eyes firm. Hope City will live or die with you, my lord. I smiled, shook my head, and said, no, we won't perish. I turned to look at him, and at every person in this city. This apocalypse is time to end. I walked out of Hope City alone, stood on the city wall, facing the zombie horde that seemed ready to devour heaven and earth. Inside the city, 100,000 people watched me through giant screens. They were tense, fearful, but more than that, trusting. The S-class zombie's roar seemed capable of tearing apart one's soul. He commanded the horde to launch the final assault. I slowly raised my hands, as if to embrace the entire world. Everyone thought I was about to unleash some world-destroying attack, but they were wrong. There was no killing intent on my face, only a trace of compassion. My ability was not meant for destruction, but for rebirth. I closed my eyes and released all my power, without reservation. Not aimed at any single zombie, nor at any specific area, but at this world, scarred and battered, sick unto death. Time seemed to stop at that moment, a gentle and vast white light, beyond words, spread outward from me, across the entire world. Wherever the light passed, the frenzied zombies halted in their tracks, their rotting bodies began to heal. Their murky eyes regained clarity. The violence and bloodlust in their eyes were replaced by confusion and humanity. The light swept over the land, and the cracked, dry earth, fresh green grass sprouted anew. The gray haze dispersed, revealing the long-lost azure sky. The S-class zombie sitting on his throne of bones watched in terror as his own body transformed. He tried to resist, but could not stop this force of the world's primal law. In the end, he too returned to human form, staring blankly at his own hands. The entire world had been reborn. All those infected by the virus had returned to normal. All the environments ravaged by the apocalypse had been restored to life, as if that 5-year-long nightmare was merely an illusion. Hope City, once shrouded in deathly silence. Everyone, through their screens, gazed dumbfounded at this miraculous scene. No one knew how long had passed. The first person wept for joy, then came the second, the third. At last, earth-shattering cheers resounded throughout the entire city, reverberating across the wholly renewed world. They shouted my name. I stood atop the city wall, feeling the gentle breeze. Turning back, I saw Xianxia, saw my parents, saw countless joyful, hopeful faces. I smiled. The instant noodles before me could be endlessly refreshed, and so could this world beneath my feet.